A fiscal year is a period used for calculating annual financial statements in businesses and other organizations. In many jurisdictions, regulatory laws regarding accounting and taxation require such reports once per 12 months, but do not require that the period reported on constitutes a calendar year. Fiscal years vary between businesses and countries. The fiscal year may also refer to the year used for income tax reporting. Some companies choose to end their fiscal year on the same day of the week, such day being the one closest to a particular date. Under such a system, some fiscal years will have 52 weeks and others 53 weeks. Major corporations that adopt this approach include Cisco Systems. Nevertheless, the fiscal year is identical to the calendar year for about 65% of publicly traded companies in the United States and for a majority of large corporations in the UK and elsewhere. Many universities have a fiscal year which ends during the summer, both to align the fiscal year with the school year, and because the school is normally less busy during the summer months. In the Northern Hemisphere this is July in one year to June in the next year. In the Southern Hemisphere this is January to December of a single calendar year. Some media communication-based organizations use a broadcast calendar as the basis for their fiscal year. Operation in various countries region, in some jurisdictions, particularly those that permit tax consolidation, companies that are part of a group of businesses must use nearly the same fiscal year, with consolidating entries to adjust for transactions between units with different fiscal years, so the same resources will not be counted more than once or not at all. Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, the fiscal year is recently changed from 1 Hamal 29 Hut to 1 Jadi 30 Kaus. The fiscal year runs with the Afghan calendar, thus resulting in difference of the Gregorian dates once in a 4-year span. Australia. In Australia, the fiscal year or, more commonly, financial year, starts on July 1 and ends on June 30. For personal income tax after the financial year ends, individuals have until October 31 to lodge their return. This fiscal year definition is used both for official purposes and by the overwhelming majority of private enterprises, but this is not legally mandated. A company may, for example, opt for a financial year that always ends at the end of a week, or opt for each financial year to end on a different date to match the reporting cycles of its foreign parent. Brazil. In Brazil, the fiscal year starts in January 1 and ends in December 31. Citizens pay income tax starting in May, but the form filling goes from March to April. All tax declarations must be done online using government-written free software. Colombia. In Colombia, the fiscal year starts January 1 ending in December 31. Yearly taxes are due in the middle of March-April for corporations while citizens pay income tax starting in August, ending in September, according to the last 2 digits of the national ID. Costa Rica. The fiscal year in Costa Rica spans from October 1 until September 30. Taxpayers are required to pay the tributes before December 15 of each year. Canada. In Canada, the government's financial year runs from April 1 to March 31. For individuals in Canada, the fiscal year runs from January 1 to December 31. China. The fiscal year for all entities starts on January 1 and ends December 31, consistent with the calendar year, to match the tax year, statutory year, and planning year. Egypt. In the Arab Republic of Egypt, the fiscal year starts on July 1 and concludes on June 30. France. The fiscal year matches the calendar year, and has since at least 1911. Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, the government's financial year runs from April 1 to March 31. India. In India, the government's financial year runs from April 1 to March 31 midnight. Example, April 1, 2014 to March 31, 2015 for the financial year 2014 Euro 2015. It is also abbreviated as FY15. Companies following the Indian depository receipt are given freedom to choose their financial year. For example, Standard Chartered's IDR follows the UK calendar despite being listed in India. Iran. In Iran, the fiscal year starts usually on 1 Farvardin and concludes on 29 Esfandin Solar Hari calendar, March 21, 20 March. Ireland. Ireland used the year ending April 5 until 2001 when it was changed, at the request of Finance Minister Charlie McCreevy, to match the calendar year. Since 2002, it is aligned with the calendar year, January 1 to December 31. Italy. In Italy the fiscal year was from July 1 to June 30 until 1965. Now it is from January 1 until December 31. Japan. In Japan, the government's financial year runs from April 1 to March 31. The fiscal year is represented by the calendar year in which the period begins, followed by the word nendo. For example, the fiscal year from April 1, 2014 to March 31, 2015 is called 2014 a Euro nendo. Japan's income tax year runs from January 1 to December 31, but corporate tax is charged according to the corporation's own annual period. Mexico. In Mexico the fiscal year is the same as the calendar year. Myanmar. Burma. In Myanmar, the fiscal year goes from April 1 to March 31. New Zealand. The New Zealand government's fiscal and financial reporting year begins on April 1 and concludes on March 31 of the following year and applies to the budget. The company and personal financial year begins on April 1 and finishes on March 31 and applies to company and personal income tax. Pakistan. The Pakistan government's fiscal year starts on July 1 of the previous calendar year and concludes on June 30. Private companies are free to observe their own accounting year, which may not be the same as Government of Pakistan's fiscal year. Russia. The fiscal year matches the calendar year, and has since at least 1911. Singapore. The fiscal year for the calculation of personal income taxes runs from January 1 to December 31. The fiscal year for the government of Singapore and many government-linked corporations runs from April 1 to March 31. Corporations and organizations are permitted to select any date to mark the end of each fiscal year, as long as this date remains constant. South Africa. In South Africa the fiscal year for the government of South Africa starts on April 1 and ends March 31. The year of assessment for individuals covers 12 months, beginning on March 1 and ending on the final day of February the following year. The Act also provides for certain classes of taxpayers to have a year of assessment ending on a day other than the last day of February. Companies are permitted to have a tax year ending on a date that coincides with their financial year. Many older companies still use a tax year that runs from July 1 to June 30, inherited from the British system. A common practice for newer companies is to run their tax year from March 1 to the final day of February following, to synchronize with the tax year for individuals. Spain. In Spain the fiscal year starts on January 1 and ends December 31. Sweden. The fiscal year for individuals runs from January 1 to December 31. The fiscal year for an organization is typically one of the following: January 1 to December 1, 31 May to April 1, 30 July to June 1, 30 September to August 31. If an organization wishes to use any other period, the organization has to ask the tax authorities for permission. Taiwan. Under the Income Tax Act of Taiwan, the fiscal year commences on January 1 and ends on December 31 of each calendar year. However, an enterprise may elect to adopt a special fiscal year at the time it is established and can request approval from the tax authorities to change its fiscal year. Thailand. Thai government's fiscal year begins on October 1 of the previous calendar year and ends on September 30 of the next year. Ukraine. In Ukraine fiscal year matches calendar year and starts on January 1 and ends December 31. United Arab Emirates. In the United Arab Emirates, the fiscal year starts on January 1 and ends December 31. United Kingdom. In the United Kingdom, the financial year runs from April 1 to March 31 for the purposes of corporation tax and government financial statements. For the self-employed and others who pay personal tax the fiscal year starts on April 6 and ends on April 5 of the next calendar year. Although United Kingdom corporation tax is charged by reference to the government's financial year, companies can adopt any year as their accounting year. If there is a change in tax rate, the taxable profit is apportioned to financial years on a time basis. A number of major corporations that were once government-owned, such as BT Group and the National Grid, continue to use the government's financial year, which ends on the last day of March, as they have found no reason to change since privatization. The 5th April year-end for personal tax and benefits reflects the old ecclesiastical calendar, with New Year falling on March 25, the difference being accounted for by the 11 days missed out, when Great Britain converted from the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar in 1752 of the Calendar Act 1750. The 1752 Euro 3 tax year was extended by 11 days. From 1753 until 1799, the tax year in Great Britain began on April 5, which was the old-style New Year of March 25. A 12th skipped Gregorian leap day in 1800 changed its start to April 6. It was not changed when a 13th Julian leap day was skipped in 1900, so the start of the personal tax year in the United Kingdom is still April 6. United States. The United States federal government's fiscal year is the 12-month period ending on September 30 of that year, having begun on October 1 of the previous calendar year. In particular, the identification of a fiscal year is the calendar year in which it ends. Thus, the current fiscal year is 2014, often written as FY 2014, or FY14, which began on October 1, 2013 and which will end on September 30, 2014. Prior to 1976, the fiscal year began on July 1 and ended on June 30. The Congressional Budget and Impoundment Control Act of 1974 made the change to allow Congress more time to arrive at a budget each year, and provided for what is known as the Transitional Quarter from July 1, 1976 to September 30, 1976. An earlier shift in the federal government's fiscal year was made in 1843, shifting the fiscal year from a calendar year to one starting on July 1. For example, the United States government fiscal year for 2014 is, first quarter, October 1, 2013 Euro December 31, 2013, second quarter, January 1, 2014 Euro March 31, 2014, third quarter, April 1, 2014 Euro June 30, 2014, fourth quarter, July 1, 2014 Euro September 30, 2014, as stated above. The tax year for a business is governed by the fiscal year it chooses. Chart of various fiscal years. Tax year. The fiscal year for individuals and entities to report and pay income taxes is often known as the taxpayer's tax year or taxable year. Taxpayers in many jurisdictions may choose their tax year. In federal countries, state cantonal tax years must be the same as the federal year. Nearly all jurisdictions require that the tax year be 12 months or 52/53 weeks. However, short years are permitted as the first year or when changing tax years. Most countries require all individuals to pay income tax based on the calendar year. Significant exceptions include, United Kingdom, individuals pay tax on a year ending April 5. This is due to Britain historically having a calendar year starting on March 25 in the Julian calendar, which translates to April 6 in the Gregorian calendar. United States, individuals may elect any tax year, subject to IRS approval. Many jurisdictions require that the tax year conform to the taxpayer's fiscal year for financial reporting. The United States is a notable exception. Taxpayers may choose any tax year, but must keep books and records for such year. See also, 4-4-5 calendar, references.